Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, and this is juvenile justice. This is a presentation on juvenile justice. Now this area is very important because there are stark differences between juvenile and adult justice. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll take you through a tour of the differences. So what are the objectives of this presentation? Well, I'm going to go over some of the terminology as I present. I'm going to show you some differences between juvenile and adult in terms of the court system, policing, all of these areas. There are certain components that are different. Of course, then I'm going to present 3 evidence-based practices. So let's get started here. Juvenile versus adult policing, there are a lot of differences. I'm going to start off by talking about the juveniles, different strategies with juveniles than adults, de-escalation tactics, and diversion programs. And the reason I included Roper versus Simmons is because this was a landmark court case that took place afterwards when a juvenile individual was put to death. So this is having capital punishment in terms of death is quite alarming. So that's why this case is so important. Focus on preventative measures, underlying causes of juvenile delinquency, and addressing them. So going downstream, going upstream, and taking a look at how to prevent rather than after the crime has committed. So work with community organizations to provide support to at-risk youth. And just to give you some context, 250,000 youth enter the adult criminal system each year, so that they should be treated as youth. So adult, they're different from children, from juvenile. Focusing on punishment and retribution, that's the main focus for adult policing. Rehabilitation, not considered a primary goal. So you're more focused on punishment. There's deterrence outcome of punishment, open public access to criminal records, and that might seem like a breach of privacy in some instances, and certain public access information may not be always suitable. So the defendants in the criminal justice system on trial is based on legal documents. All right. So the adult versus juvenile court system. So the previous slide was looking at the policing. Now we're looking at the adult court system, how that's different. So this time I have juveniles at first and then adults. So that this is how the slide is presented. So juvenile, different procedures, different rules, different goals than the adult system. Of course, sentences can include incarceration, fines, and other penalties. There are exceptions. I'm going to take a tangent here. There are exceptions to this. For instance, the 13-year-old that killed individuals within the school, that would be a crime committed and tried as an adult. Something that is important to note is that unlike adult records, juvenile records are sealed. And that is there because you want to maintain the privacy. So the goal in adults is for the adult criminal system as focus on punishment. I mean, penal means punishable by law. So adult criminal records are generally public. That's different. Sentences can include incarceration, fines, and other penalties. It's kind of there, but as you can see, among children, among juveniles, this is kind of like similar, but the prevention measure is different. So proceedings are typically public and with the jury deciding the case. So those are the differences between the court system in juvenile and adults. So how about adult corrections? Where's the difference? So with juvenile, children and teenagers are still growing and learning. And that's the underlying concept as to why some of these differences exist. So achieved through programs that address the underlying causes of their behavior, such as education, counseling, and vocational training. So these are the focus. So instead of trials, juvenile cases are handled through adjudication hearings. Adult, there's punishing offenders. The length of an adult sentence can range from months to life. Prosecutor must prove that a defendant is guilty beyond reasonable doubt. They must also prove that the offense was committed with criminal intent. So evidence-based practices, what are some of them? I'm not sure if you can see this, but one of them is the multi-systemic therapy, and this is evidence-based, family-centered intervention designed to address serious antisocial behaviors in adolescents and young adults. So then the functional family therapy, and that's evidence-based treatment model, helping families change their dynamics and interactions that address behavioral or emotional issues for youth. Then the next intervention is treatment foster care Oregon. And this was developed as an alternative to institutional, residential, and group care placements. And this is for children with emotional and behavioral disorders. Finally, and this is primarily for sexual offenders, but something that was interesting. These are designed to address problematic sexual behaviors in youth and their families, focusing the youth's environment and multiple systemic factors. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. The multisystemic therapy, that's the first one that I went over. I wanted to hone in and see some of the concepts, some of the highlights I wanted to present. So that the multisystemic theory reduces antisocial behaviors, and those crimes can be delinquency, substance use, and violence. This helps families with youth 11 to 18 who are at risk or involved with social services. Improve family functioning and relationships, enhance school performance and engagement, and decrease involvement with the criminal justice system. So these are self-explanatory, but nevertheless very important to kind of revisit. All right, so evidence-based practices, there's more family therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, case management, and regular monitoring of progress. So as I was stating, the problem sexual offenders, there's multiple treatment options, intervention options that might be suitable for individuals that are that have these problems. So this is designed to address problematic sexual behaviors in youth and families, focusing on the youth's environment and multiple systemic factors. And this is a comprehensive treatment program delivered in the client's natural environment, home, school, and community. So a lot of this might take more effort, having to provide some of this rehabilitation. And some individuals argue that this is not even possible or difficult to achieve, but this is a successful intervention. All right, so treatment foster care program. There was some secondary analysis, and the study observed for 2 years 52 children enrolled in the treatment foster care program, and 67 children who are eligible but remained in or entered residential care. So the cost-benefit evidence is promising. as implemented in a state child welfare system, has implications of social work services and placement decision making and system capacity. There's also National Prisoners Family Helpline, prisoners, people with convictions, defendants, and their families. And then, of course, this is the intervention, treatment, foster care, so I include that for completeness. All right, so summary for adults. Of course, the main focus is um, more like more penal rather than prevention. So incarceration, fines, penalties. That's how adults. Confidentiality, as I stated in my slide, public and formal with jury deciding the case. Legal context, how it applies to attorney-client relationships, patient, and other situations. And then the protection of sensitive information. To a certain degree, of course, there might be important information to be gathered. With juvenile, this is private, informal counseling, community service, probation placement, and um, the juvenile justice system is dedicated to adjudicating felony and misdemeanors allegedly committed by minors, and um, and these are highlighted as status offenses. I'm going to go more into some of the common crimes that are committed by juveniles. So here they are. Truancy means to deliberately, without excuses, shirking from mandatory education. Of course, there's curfew violations that are potentially there. Vandalism, that's something, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic when people didn't have, a lot of teenagers didn't have the social outlets that they usually have. Of course, drug offenses, that's something in neighborhoods that have higher drug activity makes this more a potential cause. And then burglary, that's one of the common causes. There's justice system variations by country, by location, and of course the justice system is designed to vary according to age. So the juvenile system works differently, and with the notion that juveniles can be rehabilitated. The adult justice system is meant to be punitive, and the juvenile justice system focuses on rehabilitation versus punishment. So these are my references. I hope this has made some sense. Thank you for listening.